keeping my promise, no more than 5 minutes in these videos. I was able to do it in the first one. I'm wasting my time right now, so let's go back into the action. Some specific measures we have to know of. One is we're gonna talk about some measurements population wise and everything. Okay, so first one is crude mortality rate. So the word crude is telling us that it will give us generalized information, population-based information. So crude mortality rate is the number of deaths over the total population or total amount of population. Couple of examples. For the USA, it was 8.95 per 1,000 persons. Costa Rica, 5.23 per 1,000. Let's move on to cause-specific mortality. Okay, now this one is more specific. So guess what the numerator will be? It will be the number of deaths from a particular disease over the total population. So in the case of COVID, what's the cause-specific mortality for the US? It's 952,000 deaths over its population, which is 332 million, etc. Okay, so it's 0.0029% cause-specific mortality. For Costa Rica, 8,047 deaths over 5 million, blah, blah, blah. So the cause-specific mortality for Costa Rica is 0.0016%. Okay, so now let's move on to case fatality rate. Case fatality rate is a little more specific. It is comparing itself on itself. So what's the numerator? It's the number of deaths from a particular disease. So the numerator stays the same as the last example. But what will change? The denominator, because now you will compare the number of deaths from a disease over the number of the people with the disease. So this is important because it will give us a little more information of how bad is the virus or whatever. So in the case of COVID, the case fatality rate is 0.12% in USA, in Costa Rica 0.01%. I wouldn't trust that much, and the Costa Rica numbers would trust a little more on the US numbers, would think they are a little inflated probably, but would trust a little more in the US numbers. So it's very similar to the case fatality rate of influenza, because influenza is 0.1 approximately. So this one is 0.12. Yeah, you're getting close. So this might be probably due to the surge of Omicron, which has increased all these number of cases with much less of a fatality rate, right? So next measurement is standardized mortality ratio. This is what we usually talk or refer to as excess deaths. So we know about this during this COVID pandemic. It basically compares the number of observed deaths. Okay, so how many people actually died in 2020 in Italy over the number of expected deaths. So how many people should have died in Italy for 2020? How can you calculate this? So you just go back when, for example, in this COVID pandemic, you are trying to see what the excess deaths are of a population. So you have a new thing going on, which is COVID, which came late 2019. So you get the graphs and you see how many people were dying in 2016, 17, and you extrapolate that, taking into account a lot of mathematical formulas and everything, trying to adjust for population structure and everything. But in the end, you will be able to say, okay, this is the number of expected people to have died in 2020, and this is the observed number. So you have excess deaths, a positive number or a negative number. Positive number means more people than died than they should have. Negative is that actually less than predicted. Then you have the attack rate. Attack rate is the number of affected persons with the disease over those at risk or exposed. In this COVID times, how can you know the attack rate for COVID? One, they have made several studies, but one of the first ones was seeing people that were on a cruise ship, or seeing people that were on a passenger flight, because they knew that there was someone who was positive. So how many people eventually got the infection? So there you have it, 84% in one of those flight studies. Or you had someone in the hospital positive, and you track a lot of these people who were in the hospital and go to their household, and then you ask those in their household if they, not even ask them, you get antibody tests a month after these people, the index cases, went home to their families, and you see what's the attack rate. In that other study, we have 45%, for example. Now, maternal mortality rate. It's the number of maternal deaths over, not the number of total births, over the number of live births. So that's an important characteristic. It's how many, the denominator is number of live births. And crude birth rate is the number of live births over the total population size. That's it for this video. See you in the next one.